Walking at the moment, and it dawned on me to capture maybe a message or just a random thought I had about the nature of intention. How we actually cast spells on each other. There's a subtle current emitted by the intent of the individual viewing. We charge things with power. There's an old saying, where attention goes, power flows. And it's true. Because, in quantum physics, they do this experiment to demonstrate the duality of a particle that also exists in a wave form only when it's being noticed. It's reacting to the observation of itself. It's creating an event in time. But without going on a tangent, photons are aware that they're being observed. Why? Because they are the carriers of this waveform, the carriers of this subtle electrical pressure emitted through the act of observation. And so when we observe one another with intent, we actually cast spells on each other. And I recall, I haven't listened to it yet, but I happened upon a YouTube clip. I'm listening to a lot of stuff by the Jewish, rabbis, their elders. They have a great deal of wisdom. But there's this one who was talking about the evil eye. And I haven't really listened to it yet, but I have an understanding of that sort of thing. And it all boils down to how we charge things with our intention. You said an intention, even subconsciously. We do so by judging. When we look at something and we judge its qualities, we determine it to be a favorable thing or a non-favorable thing, or somewhere along the spectrum. But in judging it and dividing it along those lines with judgment, we actually charge a thing with either good intention or bad intention. And it alters the molecular structure of that thing. So when we do this with one another, we actually bring harm to one another. But it dawned on me, this was very interesting. I'm walking along and I saw these two trash cans. This is trash day. A lot of people put their trash out. The garbage man's already come. And some of the garbage cans are, they don't have the weight in them anymore. They tip over. So they're lying along the street. And I'm walking along a main street with houses. And I happen upon two trash cans that are tipped over on their side. And it looks like, a strong gust of wind might blow them out into the street. So I do the neighborly thing. Pick them up and put them up by the house. And I noticed another car facing in my general direction. Somebody had parked and had been there a while, and I noticed their lights go out. I imagine they were probably noticing me and possibly wondering what I was doing, because, it's possible I was, they were neighbors, and this person clearly knew I didn't belong there. What am I doing with the trash cans? And then, it's just me imagining how it all plays out sometimes. And this might not have been the case, but sometimes it happens this way, I do the neighborly thing and someone happens to see me. We always know that there's always someone watching. But then they notice me do a good thing, and then they judge me for it. And it's that quality that we carry within ourselves when we do things that we find to ourselves to be pleasing, and judging ourselves along our own basic moral system of guidelines, but just a general moral code. Everybody needs a moral code, something they stand by, just so they don't know whether they're doing the right thing in their own eyes or not. And it's good to define that. So, and develop it as you grow older. Just things that you generally stand by in the name of good, of what is good. And then you develop an appreciation for good and for other people's morals. And you begin to examine them, and you refine them, and they evolve, and they change, and they add, and you see the value of good, and it just sharpens you over time. But, I imagine this person observed me, and possibly because I'm demonstrating to myself the qualities of what I consider to be good or the neighborly thing. This person may have been observing me and noticed me do the same and possibly judge me the same way. And that subtle current of energy emitted by someone judging, by me doing a simple kind thing in quiet, not to be seen or noticed. We were told to avoid making gifts of mercy for the public to see, making a grand gesture of it, because that's our reward. We don't get good karma. We just get the reward we were looking for, and that's just being seen doing a good thing. And another curious thing hit me about the nature of how we, when we judge, there's this mystery about, you have to watch judging people or you'll be judged the same way. And I believe it works two ways. Judgment. It's like when you judge someone, you're creating a measurement to determine their value by, out of thin air. Due to lack of perspective, lack of understanding their situation or what might have caused them to behave in a way that you find disfavorable or uncouth. You may judge them, and you create, in a sense, a measuring stick, a scale of value that you not only put them by, but you use yourself you set yourself on that measuring stick to know that the qualities you find as favorable in another person, you've successfully expelled those qualities from yourself or are consciously aware of their suppression. So you end up judging yourself, and then you hold yourself in judgment. And so essentially you cast a spell on yourself. You're ensnared by your own judgment. So when you judge, you're judged the same way. You end up judging yourself. That's sort of the way it works. And that's one. But then also, when we go around judging people, consider that energy we're sending to them. Like the intention experiment. We're sending bad intentions to them. Look at his shoes. Look at her hair. She smells bad. She's fat. She's too short. He's broke. He's stupid. She's too loose. You don't know a person's situation. You really don't. And when you form these judgments and you cast these spells on people with this power of intention, can you imagine the bounce back? Consider the fact that all things are made up of photons. Photons are God. So you're using the power of intention, essentially God's power, the power of the Lamb, the blood of the Lamb, the fire and water, blood, right? Pisces and Aries, blood. Anyway, using this power of intention, and you're casting spells on people, and you're using the power of God to do so. God notices you judging, knows that person's situation and knows yours, and knows whether your judgment falls along the lines of prideful or understanding, compassion. And there's a waveform, which, sine waves, the sin that we create through our judgment, that intention, those sine waves. When we cast these spells or through the act of observation, we're sending these energy currents that are essentially sine waves, the ripples in space-time, living serpents of energy, torsion fields, depending on your perspective. And God knows our hearts. He knows the whole situation, knows the entire geometry of the entire system, and knows whether that person's experiencing a hardship so that they can be broken down and learn a valuable lesson, so that in the latter part of their life, they may be a sword for truth. But all you see is a person who is detestable or disfavorable, and you judge them accordingly. You charge them with that power. You know, if it's not rooted in truth, there's some backlash for that. It's because we're just part of a system where we are sending and receiving code to one another with our subconscious will. And that's why we need to recalibrate the outer and inner worlds, the outer mind and the inner mind, the ego and the subconscious, the masculine and feminine, sun and moon. We need to get them together so that we can develop a system of truth that we measure ourselves by, that doesn't, it's just one, one that embodies the qualities of and the values, the attributes of understanding and wisdom and peace and justice, that aren't condemning. Because we don't know the geometry of life and time, how all things fit together. We don't understand it. We can look at the natal chart and make guesses, but we don't see how things really fit together. There's no place for any of us to really judge, unless it be one of compassion and understanding, learning a lesson, being receptive to the lesson and growing by it, integrating it, not being in resistance to goodness or innocence. It's just a thought. I was walking, and I didn't really mean for this to turn into a 10 or 15 minute thing or wherever it is now, but I just wanted to share that. And yeah, that's it.